right, we can go ahead and get started while others are joining. I'm very excited about tonight's webinar. We have two return to owner experts with us tonight from Michelson Found Animals. And without further ado, I will turn it over to you, Gina. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks, Matt, for being here.
Awesome, Rory. Thanks for having us. Welcome, everybody. I know it's getting late in the day and people are probably zoomed out, but this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. My goal in all of this is to enhance ways to increase our RTO efforts. And I personally believe that if we focus on this collectively, it has the potential to exponentially increase life saving. Tonight, we're going to give you the speed dating version of this. I'm happy to host a session for any organization catered around what you're currently doing. So Matt will put, or someone will put my email in the chat. It's also in my slides. And feel free to reach out to me. So my name is Gina Knepp. I'm the National Shelter Engagement Director for the Michelson Found Animals Foundation. And my job primarily is to focus on increasing the RTO rates across the country and really casting a bright light on this topic. I feel like I'm an RTO preacher, and I'm proud of that. So I need a pen or something. I also sit on the board of Cal Animals, and I'm on the executive committee with AMPA's HASP. I retired from the Front Street Animal Shelter about 7 months ago. The Front Street Animal Shelter is the city of Sacramento's municipal government shelter, open admission, intake about 10,500 cats and dogs. And I started there about 9 years ago. And prior to that, excuse me, hairball. Prior to that, I was managing both a 911 call center and 311 call centers. And tonight with me, I have my comrade, friend, partner in crime, Matt Ulrich, who's the relationship manager for the Western United States with Michelson. Matt, you want to say a few words to the crew?
Yeah, thank you, Gina, and thank you, Roy. Would absolutely love to. You've probably seen me at a conference or something like that. I might have even visited your shelter at some point. My name is Matt. I do oversee our operations in about 16 different states. Very dedicated to getting lost pets back home. That's what we do at Found Animals. If you've never heard of us, we do provide low-cost microchips and scanners to organizations, but what we're really known for is our free registry. Anyone with a microchip can go to found.org and you can register for free. It takes about 90 seconds. It is also free for government organizations to see direct owner information, but we also help out lots of foster networks, tons of rescues, whether you're small mom and pop or very high volume groups. Our free registry is there to assist you. Again, huge goal in getting lost pets back home. I agree with Gina. If we can get them all back to the couch where they belong, the home where they're at, we can save them all.
Thank you, Matt. So I've been preaching RTO a long time, long before joining the Michelson Found Animals team. And I as an industry, I think we've devoted so little attention to this topic. I mean, I train all over the country and I always ask people, you know, when was the last time you went to a class about RTO? And it's just not happening. But finally, it feels like instead of waiting for people to show up and, you know, redeem their lost cat or dog, that there is an opportunity and an effort to be really proactive at finding missing pet people. And I think that's the shift in what we're doing. We don't have to wait any longer, but we do need to do a little more work. RTO is finally getting the attention that it deserves. Things have shifted, and I'm hoping that our time together is going to inspire you a little bit, maybe give you some new tools and strategies to try. This is RTO training on steroids. It's like speed dating, so I'm going to race through some of this. And you may already be doing some of these things, or you may even have better strategies. And if you do, I would love to hear from you as I'm collecting essentially an encyclopedia of RTO for the United States. So just a little bit of data based on the ASPCA's research about, you know, a little over 3 million pets enter our shelters every year, and 700,000 or a little more are returned to owner out of that 3 million. 620,000 or so and our dogs, 90,000 are cats, which means our national average RTO rate is only 22%. So we have so much opportunity to improve and do things a little differently. So start with the why. I mean, why is RTO important? I mean, come on, getting lost pets back home quickly, it's the right thing to do for the animal and the person that loves them. It lowers length of stay. It reduces our cost. And I think this is important too. It lessens impact on staff who have to take care of these animals. It ensures we maintain adequate kennel space. One of the big things is building trust with our community. So if the pet owners in our community feel that we are proactively doing everything in our power to get their beloved, four-legged friend back home, that says a lot, and it does a lot for us as an industry and our reputation. And again, for number one, primarily for me, RTO is important because it's the right thing to do. So these are our whys. How do we do that? First and foremost, RTO has to be a fabric of your organizational culture. It has to be a priority. It has to be something that we talk about all the time. When you have staff meetings, it had better be on your agenda. Constantly communicating messages to pet owners in our respective cities. We can't just do it around the 4th of July. We need to find ways to do it constantly so that the notion of identification on an animal is the primary way that animal gets home fast, and gets home safely. And if I say this a million times, I'll say it again: chip, 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 tag, 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 and make it free or make it extremely affordable, because we know that microchips and ID tags are the #1 way that pets get back home to their families. Shelters that register the chip on behalf of the human have a higher RTO rate. So if you're spending money microchipping animals, and I don't sell chips, so this is not a sales pitch, but if you are seeing animals leaving your facility, whether adopted or RTO, register them on behalf of the person. The shelters that do that have the highest RTO rates. Kind of look inside. Does your shelter have clear protocols? Do you have a procedure that everyone on your team, and including your volunteers, know how to follow in searching for a missing person? The animal's not lost anymore because you have it. It's the person that's missing. And it's our job, instead of sitting back and waiting for someone to show up, and COVID has taught us that people can't just show up anymore, it's our job to seek out people. And there's a lot of tools and strategies to do that. We have to, and you can only do that if you understand the available resources that are out there. And most of them are free or extremely low cost. And another piece of advice is make sure that your website provides clear and actionable instructions for someone that either loses a pet or finds a pet. Those are my hows. I am a big fan of Dr. Hurley. She and I were chatting about this several months ago. She's actually the one who came up with the term radical RTO. And when she said radical RTO could do for dogs what RTF, that's return to field or spay, neuter, return, has done for cats, can finally really stop this vicious cycle that we find ourselves in. I mean, we take animals from homes where they are loved, they have a name, even if those homes and the people in them don't look like us. There's a lot of judgment in this industry, and we've finally reached a place where we're starting to, do some soul searching about how we treat people and our impressions and biases. But anyways, those animals leave those homes and they're going to get refilled by dogs that didn't come from a shelter, maybe dogs that are bred down the street. And we spend all of this time and energy trying to find a home for an animal that already had one. So I'm a big proponent of what Dr. Hurley has to say. So when I was managing the Front Street Animal Shelter, I kind of lost my mind and decided early on that we were going to offer as many microchips as humanly possible, either free or at our cost, or free ID tags to anybody that wanted one, whether they lived in our jurisdiction or not. And we did this from 2012 through, they still do this, but from 2012 through 2018, we looked at the data. And what we invested on the front end, buying those chips and those tags and those collars, paled in comparison to the savings. So this is just a chart that talks about the reduction in length of stay over that period of time that we studied. I mean, length of stay for dogs decreased 3.4 days, cats 5.4, kittens and puppies, you can see there was a reduction. And we did the math of daily cost of care and determined that this was an over $700,000 savings to our city by investing on the front end. In the beginning, we started tracking, I keep saying we, I don't work for Front Street anymore, but they'll always be in my heart. In the beginning, animals coming into the shelter, about 10% arrived with some form of identification. 10%, right? So 1,000 out of the 10,000. By the time we got done, at the end of 2018, 40% of the animals arriving at the shelter had some form of ID, primarily a microchip and ID tags. And so I have to believe that despite the accelerating growth in human population in Sacramento, I mean, despite the fact that there was more housing, but our intake remained pretty consistently flat. And I have to believe that those efforts that we made on the front end had an impact on the number of animals coming to us. I can't prove that for sure, but when I look at the savings and the amount of money that we actually spent, you know, offering tags and chips, we certainly didn't spend $700,000. So for those of you that want to talk further about this, I'm happy to, but this really resonates with the people that manage the purse strings. We also were very, very proactive in making sure that the staff who were tasked with trying to track down an owner had all the tools that they needed to do it. And I know it might sound crazy, but I used to be a bill collector. And TransUnion, for example, is a platform that allows you to hunt people down that haven't paid their bills. So we got our own account and we use it to hunt down people that lost their pets. You know, just because the phone number is disconnected or somebody moved doesn't mean you can't find them. And utilizing, and that's a really low cost option, but there's free options. Facebook, create an account for your team that they can use specifically for reaching out to pet owners. A lot of people might change their phone numbers, but typically their Facebook page remains the same. Things like Instagram and LinkedIn, using Craigslist, those are all very free, easily accessible. Most people have a social footprint, but a lot of shelters just either don't think that they can do this, haven't thought of doing this, or don't think they have time to do this. And we can't afford not to, in my opinion. We also invested in a cell phone, just one, for the entire customer service team so that they can text people, because text messages are opened at a 90% rate in comparison to trying to leave someone a voicemail message whose voicemail box is either full or has not been set up. And that was a big game changer. I think it's the city of Austin. It's mandated in their policies and procedures that in addition to leaving a voicemail message or sending a letter, you also have to text a phone number. There's a myriad of ways to reach folks. We also use the Mighty Text app that allows staff to send rather lengthy text messages off of using their desktop. And there's a small cost to that, but you can do that for free simply by Googling someone's cell phone number to find out who the provider is, and you can type to text for free. Lots and lots of different ways of being creative to track people down. We need to stop waiting for people to come to us. We need to be the ones that find them. You know, just a partnership with your local utility company. There are animal lovers everywhere, right? So just a simple phone call to your local gas or electric company and find someone in their revenue office that's responsible for finding bad debtors, and say you need help tracking someone down so you can get their pet back to them. There are a lot of technological and social platforms available to us, but we need to use them. And I always say it's kind of like being a criminal. There are 3 components to success in this, and it's desire, ability, and opportunity. And these are just other means of opportunity that we can use, but we just have to want to. And I mean, I can preach forever about this, but we have resources and we need to use them to help pets get back home where they belong. They don't need a new family. They just need to find their way back home. I'm a huge proponent of using volunteers ad nauseum. In Sacramento, we started the SMART team, and there's a group of volunteers, completely 100% volunteer managed, and they show up at events where people are with their pets. They go to breweries, they go to parks, and they scan people's pets for free. There's no charge, and they show pet owners how to update microchip information. They pass out coupons for free microchips or $5 microchips to anybody that needs one. And then people say, well, why do you do this? If we don't continually talk about the need to update microchips and ensure that our pets' information is still current, we will continue to be inundated with animals that may have dead-end chips. This crew of volunteers, it's super low cost. Volunteers are free. They're extremely passionate. It helps pet owners understand the importance of microchip registration and keeping it current. And then we're able to share with them, Matt mentioned it, the free registry. I mean, regardless of what microchip someone may have in their animal, they can still utilize the Found Animals Registry at no cost. So we created this check a chip form, we scan the animals, we write down the microchip number for the pet owner, and when we're really good, we have a laptop and Wi-Fi, we log into the registry and help that pet owner. And this isn't just about making sure that microchips are updated. This is about developing a relationship. I'm sorry, my dog is barking. Sorry. It's about developing a relationship with pet owners, and how they view us, how they perceive the work that we do is critically important. Giving people resources and helping them understand I always think, I like to future think about this stuff. How our community perceives us has a lot to do with what they're going to vote for in the future. And just think about it this way. I always try to think about it this way. If there's a measure on the ballot 5 years now, giving money to build a new shelter or whatever, augment your budget, what you did during that 5-year period and your relationship with your community is going to be the determining factor on whether you get the support that you need. So look at it. I like to look at it that way. Many of you, I'm sure, are on Chameleon. If you have not done this yet, I highly recommend it. As a courtesy to pet owners and those who find lost animals, we began listing the lost and found reports on the public-facing website instead of housing them in these dusty giant binders that are kept in the lobby that nobody looks at. You know, the poor pet owner comes in and fills out the form and it goes into a binder, and they think that we're going to, you know, the shelter fairies are going to look through these binders at night and match things up. And we all know that's not happening. A lot of times too, a pet or a finder will hold on to a pet for a week or two, right? And then they get disappointed. They haven't found the owner. And in the meantime, the owner's coming in every other day, frantic, looking for their pet. And 2 weeks go by, they lose hope. And the person who found that animal surrenders it to us anyway. So I think this is really important, being very proactive. Volunteers can do this. Certainly a dedicated staff person would be ideal, but volunteers can cross-check. Look at the finds, the animals that are found, look at the animals that are lost, and make matches. It's the most amazing feeling. I think most of you can attest to experiencing and witnessing a wonderful RTO. And again, it offers you an opportunity to have those conversations with pet owners about the importance of spaying and neutering and licensing and chipping and tagging. But let's do something on the front end for altruistic reasons. No, you know, we have no skin in this game other than helping people reunite with their animals. But if you, one other thing. I like to point out what's happening in Maricopa. I'm really impressed by the work they're doing. So they use their city's GIS system, and the citizens can self-serve. So the blue dots, for example, represent someone who reported a found dog, and the purple dots are a lost dog. And the public can actually click on those dots and self-reunite on their own. Another really progressive thing they're doing in Maricopa is their officers use Twitter. go to their page. I mean, I have not found another city where officers are using Twitter like they are in Maricopa. Every impound, every time they put an animal on their truck, they'll send a tweet at No Lost Pets MC and post the information immediately. And that's working really well for them. Again, it doesn't cost anything to do this. For those of you that have that are in government shelters, you already have a GIS system. I strongly encourage you to reach out to your IT department to see if something like this is even possible. But if you can't do high tech, you can do low tech. And again, you can use volunteers to do this. All of us receive on a daily basis a myriad of emails about lost and found pets. Posting all of the lost, printing them out and posting the lost pets on the wall in your intake room can make a world of difference for that lost animal. It's so easy to glance up and say, oh my gosh, that's this dog. Stop everything. Let's call the owner. We found that this was a quick, easy, affordable way to do what's right. Front Street was super lucky. We got a grant from Petco Foundation and implemented a texting program. If you text the word stray to 555-888, if you lost your pet, you'll begin to receive a series of tips, tricks, websites, videos, everything that a pet owner needs all in one place to help them be proactive in finding their missing animal. Again, we were very fortunate to receive this grant, so we were able to print magnets and do all sorts of fancy stuff, but you don't need to do that. The script is written. Again, I'm happy to share that with anybody who wants to reach out to me. It takes about a day to implement it. We use simple texting as the platform. The cost for Sacramento was about $1,300 a year, which is negligible when you think about cost of daily care. It's a great, easy tool, and it doesn't require staff intervention once it's set up. Very, very popular in Sacramento. New York has launched, Chicago has launched, Stanislaus, can't remember who else. But again, I'm happy to talk to anybody about this. And then it got expanded. So you can text found pet, and those of you in the audience can try it. Type found pet to 555-888, and the finder begins to receive tips and tricks on how to find the owner. Texting is pretty unlimited in the abilities or the functionality. It's affordable, has a high open rate, super high. I know that Front Street is now using it to communicate with their foster families and also with volunteers, because we can email volunteers all day long and they may not see the email for several days, but a text does the trick, and it's super quick, super easy. I'm also a big proponent of Finding Rover. The Petco Foundation recently announced a few weeks ago that they have purchased Finding Rover. If you are not a Finding Rover partner yet, I highly recommend it. It is free. It's pet facial recognition technology. It actually does work. It's awesome for lost, found, and also for adoptions, which is another really cool feature. They've got widgets for your Facebook, for your website. But again, none of this works. None of it works if our teams can't talk about it, if they can't speak to it, if they don't understand it, if they don't have an elevator speech. So the more well-versed all of our staff and volunteers can be, and that's kind of up to management, right? Are we training our people? Can they speak RTO? All of these wonderful platforms will never work if we don't train to it and we don't set expectations, really super high goals. So again, another great tool, which I know that some of you use, is Nextdoor. We were able to, about almost 3 years ago, our own Nextdoor login, and we post every single stray dog to the appropriate neighborhood from which it was found every day. Another 100% volunteer managed program. We increased the RTO rate. That happened overnight. But the other really cool things that happen is that we increased community engagement. Donations went up. All of a sudden, all of these people that are on Nextdoor became aware of the fact that there's a lot of stray animals in our community, lost animals in our community. They started being eyes and ears for us. We were on their minds every day, almost subliminally. Even if you weren't an animal lover, you were seeing these posts. And, the greatest byproduct is that the return to owner rates increased. It's not easy to get a Nextdoor account. Again, I'm happy to talk to anybody offline on how we manage to do this. It's very scripted. We have very, very strict rules on its use because we don't want to lose that privilege, but it's free and you reach an entirely larger audience than you would otherwise. I also like to mention PetHub. This is a license tag. It is as affordable as those ugly metal tags you currently use today. It's branded. It has 2 phone numbers on it, and really cool feature. Top left photo is the QR code. So someone who finds an animal wearing this license can scan with their camera, and any information that the pet owner chooses to reveal pops up. So that's my dog. He's had his tag for 3 years. It's still intact. It's still legible. It doesn't wear off. And again, the best part about it is the price is amazing. They will match the price that you're currently spending, but it's branded and it's cool and it's hip and the millennials love it. So I'm a big fan of PetHub, and no, I do not work for them. I'm a big proponent of amnesty also. Couple times a year, especially 4th of July, New Year's Eve, when fireworks run rampant. About 6 weeks prior to that, we do amnesty. We consistently see a spike in RTO during amnesty, which tells me that RTO fees are preventing people oftentimes from coming to get their animals. And the notion of holding pets hostage because people can't afford to get them out, just, I don't know about you, it hurts my heart. So during amnesty, provided the animal came to us to no fault of it's not an investigation or a bite situation, the owner is offered free spay and neuter if they want it, free microchip, a free ID tag, and if they live in our jurisdiction, a free license. We now have them in our system. We establish a relationship, which started out pretty benevolent, right? Because we're doing it for free. And if that animal comes back into our care, we know who they belong to. So I'm a huge proponent of amnesty. I really think that we should get rid of RTO fees. That's my 2 cents. And engaging your community. COVID has really shown us that people in this country are ready, willing, and able to help us. The giant spike in foster homes taught us a huge lesson. So I have to ask, what else can they be doing for us, right? I happen to love Mr. Rogers, and I believe in the helpers. Let the helpers help. You know, an unquantifiable number of lost pets are reunited with their owners without the intervention of an animal shelter. It's been happening forever. We like to think we're the center of the universe, but we're not. You know, the notion that good people with good intentions will do the right thing for a lost pet has always been happening. And COVID allowed us to have increased conversations with our community. People are paying attention to us. And so I think we really have to seize this opportunity to increase this engagement and, you know, let the helpers help. Trusting people, allowing them to help us, I think is a first step in the foundational changes that are coming as a result of COVID. And kind of as we rebrand our purpose as an industry, it only makes sense to capitalize on the opportunity to increase community involvement. And this is an example of an infographic that actually Matt created that we really encourage shelters to share with people that want to help. What can someone do when they find a lost animal? We've been pretty much removed from that conversation, but imagine what would happen if we actually started sharing tangible things that people can do who find a pet that have the ability to hold on to that animal and help us find the owner. Preliminary research out of Austin is showing that the private citizen has a higher RTO rate than we do. I think Matt will put this, the link to this downloadable poster in the chat, but it's time to train our community. It's okay to let people help us. Most people are a lot smarter than we are anyway. And lastly, and I know I'm talking really, really fast, don't forget your ACOs. Your ACOs, in my opinion, are number one. They are out there touching, talking to the most vulnerable pets in our community and pet owners that might have the greatest need. And unless we tell our ACOs, they're not going to realize their critical role in life saving. They play a critical role. I'll say it again, ACOs play a critical role in life-saving. I mean, they're the biggest and most visible champions in our community. Most people will never come to the animal shelter, but they're likely to see an animal control officer drive down the street. So I think that's why it's really important that our ACOs can speak RTO. And, you know, it's more than just scanning in the field. In my perfect world, every animal control officer in America will have a microchip scanner on their trucks. But they can knock on some doors. They can do good old plain old fashioned detective work and ask neighbors, do you recognize this dog? You know, you can snap a photo from the field and immediately file a found animal report. There are a number of things. There's some cities that actually have the, you know, found Facebook page, and the officers post as soon as they encounter an animal that appears to be lost. But again, our officers have to be able to speak RTO. They need to understand Finding Rover. How does that work? The texting program, if you have them, and be able to registry, the free registry for people. So let's not forget our animal control officers, and let's make sure they get the same, if not better, training than our shelter staff, because they have the best opportunity to have conversations that most of us will never have. So Rory, I had talked as fast as I humanly could. Let me stop sharing, and maybe we'll have some questions, and I'll turn my video on. Here we are.
Excellent, Gina. Yes, we do have a couple questions, and Christine had asked, will the deck be available to participants, or better yet, since this is being recorded, will we have access to the recording, and can we share it with shelter staff? Christine, if you're still on, in short, yes. Rory, I believe this is going to be up on the AMPA website, if I'm correct about that.
Yeah, that's correct. And we'll send it out to everyone who registered and everyone who showed up. So you should get a link in the next few days.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And if you were asking for permission to share it with shelter staff, obviously that's without question. You're more than welcome to. I have a great question about Finding Rover that's come through from Sandy. Sandy is asking, how well does Finding Rover work for cats?
It actually works better for cats than it does for dogs.
Really?
Really. I don't know why. It's the structure of the animal's face or the positioning of the eyes. It works really well for cats. When I was in Sacramento, we did not do the cats. Hopefully they have started doing that. I don't know, but it's very effective, and it works really great on humans too. I tried it.
That's good to know. So yeah, folks that are out there, check it out with cats. In fact, some of the largest, you mentioned the Mr. Rogers thing. Look for the helpers. When I look at websites like Front Street or Dallas Animal Services or San Diego Humane, these are groups that are actively looking at, actively telling people who have lost or found pets to go ahead and register for free with Finding Rover. So it's very clear that it is an effective tool that's working well. Kat she says that there are a ton of lost and found Facebook groups out there, and bless all of you that are on them. Thank you so much for doing that work. Many with organized teams who help track and trap pets. How can these groups collaborate with shelters? So I guess the big question is, you were in charge of Front Street. If there were a couple groups in Sacramento that you deemed these are definitely good SAMs, they're working in collaboration, did you work with them in Sacramento? And whether you did or did not, what was the best way that you felt could be carried out by those groups?
Well, I mean, what worked in Sacramento is like there was like this 916, that's the area or the area code lost and found page. There were a couple of others, and reaching out to the admins on all of those pages, being a resource, the reunification expert or assigned staff person that they have at Sacramento consistently scours those pages. In my perfect world, we won't need all of those pages, and we're going to come up with a solution that does it all for everybody. But I think the biggest thing is getting to know each other and supporting each other. Fortunately, in Sacramento, the relationship was pretty good. And there are a lot of good SAMs, the helpers out there. And they're so successful because that's what they love to do. They have passion for that. So we should engage them and enlist their help.
For sure. Let's see, I've got another one here. It's kind of an all-in-one, really, but the question is, Sorry, I'm losing it here.
That's all right. I already lost it.
That's okay. What should shelters do first if they want to increase RTO? What do you think, in your opinion, is like the very first step through the door?
Oh, God. Well, I said it. Chip, 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 tag, tag, tag. I mean, don't make it cost prohibitive. Always have conversations with your community about the importance of identification. I don't go downtown without my driver's license. Your pet should never leave the house without its phone number or its microchip currently registered. But it's constantly having these conversations and making it so, making it affordable, making it easy. But, the other thing is, don't just chip an animal. There's so many shelters out there that, oh yeah, we chip them, but they're not registering them. And that you wasted your money, in my opinion. Take that extra step. It's kind of like, I think San Diego Humane does this. Before someone leaves their shelter, they go over to a kiosk and they register their pet with Finding Rover, and they explain it to that pet owner. And that's why we have all this information. We know what we're talking about, but we have to get better at sharing that with pet owners so that they know what to do. People want to do the right thing, but I think it's those conversations and making a constant conversation. It can't just be, 4th of July is coming, get an ID tag or update your chip. It needs to be a regular conversation. And when we talk about it enough, then it will become reality.
Gotcha. It's funny, we bring up San Diego Humane a bunch. We visited them about fall of last year, 52.9% RTO on dogs. 52.9. That's 1 in 2 goes home.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And it's because of their efforts. Another organization, I think we talked about them last week, Matt, is Washoe County in Reno. I mean, they will chip everything with 4 legs for free. And their RTO rate is very, very high because of it. And like I said earlier, that front end investment pales in comparison to what you're saving in the long run. And not to mention, not just monetarily, but what's best for that animal and what's best for the family that loves their pet.
When you're at Front Street, what was the cost of care for a lost dog just per day?
It was about $33 a day, I think, if I remember correctly.
So we're now seeing microchip averaging about $6 per microchip, $5 in many cases. And I'm just talking about a national average. So a $5 to $6 investment saves $30 a day.
Right. And it builds relationships with people that love their animals. I mean, I can't tell you how many people wrote donation checks when we reunited them with their pets outside of the shelter. All that proactive cross-checking. People would write checks. They were so happy that we cared enough to do it. And that speaks volumes, because we can't be successful. We can't continue doing what we do if we don't have community support. And this is one of the best ways to do it. If people think we care about them and their animals, they'll care about us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Kat has a great question. She said that she read online that one community was able to issue microchip scanners to fire departments. And we're hearing about this quite a bit. Can issue microchip scanners to fire departments so that pet owners could be told to take a found pet to a fire station. This is great since many vets are closed at night and on weekends. Have you heard of this? Absolutely, we have. The question is, how would it be possible to issue scanners like this, seeing as scanners can be costly? I guess for you, Gina, it's if you were back in charge of Front Street again, you said, I want to get scanners to the fire department. What would be your first move?
Oh, I would launch a GoFundMe campaign and do a whole marketing event around that. And I guarantee you in 3 days, we could purchase a scanner for every single fire station in the city of Sacramento.
Gotcha.
Period.
GoFundMe.
People love that stuff. I mean, people love that stuff. We did a campaign to, those oxygen masks for dogs.
Yes, I do.
Right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
There was a campaign for that, and a lady popped up and she bought the oxygen mask for every single fire station in the city. People care about animals. It's a $70 billion a year industry. All you have to do is ask. And no, most of us don't have that, expendable extra income in our budgets, but guaranteed, if I was there and I did that right now, we'd have scanners in every fire station.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I know we have a number of municipal agencies that reach out to us on a regular basis asking, hey, how many scanners can we purchase from you? We want to get them soon. We're arming with fire departments. What are best practices for them? So we're not only getting them out the door, we're also getting training materials to those fire departments. So I guess the point that I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, the fire departments are a great place because they're usually well situated in communities, right? The animal shelter could be 10 miles away. Another great place are the community centers, you know, the park and rec community centers, even the local, I don't want to say 7-Eleven, but every little neighborhood has that corner store. There's a lot, you think beyond fire department, if you will.
Yeah, I do have 2 local pet stores here in East Los Angeles where I'm at, and both of them are armed with microchip scanners. And they advertise to the public, hey, if you find a lost dog or a lost cat, bring them on in, we'll check for a chip, which is great.
I mean, think about this. There's, you know, Sacramento has 219 different unique neighborhoods, and there's community leaders in all of them, right? When I lived in Hollywood Park was my neighborhood, everybody knew who I was. They knew I had a scanner. And sure enough, 10, 11 o'clock at night, someone would knock on the door, they found a stray. I can't tell you how many animals you can reunite that way. But again, it boils down to trusting people, reaching out to those neighborhood organizations and finding the leaders and the animal lovers who are willing to help.
I love that. I love that. We have another great question here that I think is very much geared towards the community. With animal closures due to COVID-19, animal shelter closures due to COVID-19, are animal shelters expanding their foster programs? Will this be the new normal?
Yeah, I think it should be our new normal. I mean, if my pet was lost, I would not, she's blind. I would not want her sitting in a concrete, you know, kennel with stainless steel and all the barking, not knowing where she was. I would rather she be in someone's house on their couch until I was able to, you know, reunite with her. We need to, I like the word, we're reimagining everything. A lot of things are changing for us, but I think what we're trying to do is what's best for animals, and we're housing them in a shelter. We did it for 100 years. So let's try something new. I mean, America showed us that they're willing to foster. Let's let them.
Love that. I love that. Here's a great question, actually, around microchips. So microchips at the vet office. This is from an anonymous attendee, but I think it's applicable to everybody. Microchips at the vet's office are much more expensive than Front Street's $5. When you started doing inexpensive microchips, did you get pushback from local vets? And if so, what did you do to counteract it?
We have absolutely no pushback from our local vets. Zero. People with the ability to take their animals to a veterinarian with regularity are still going to go to that veterinarian. They're still going to get their chip there. The folks that we are able to help with this reduced cost microchip are the ones that probably can't afford to go to that vet anyway. So no, we got zero pushback. And actually, we have mostly VCAs, a lot of VCAs in Sacramento, and they would tell people, if you can't afford it here, go to Front Street, they'll do it for $5.
So you had vets actually supporting your efforts, understanding that, quite honestly, they didn't want it on their table to facilitate that for someone. They wanted them to turn to you.
Right. And they're not registering. Most vets don't register the chip on behalf of the owner either. I don't think that's a big moneymaker for the veterinarians. It's other stuff.
No, probably not. And I would wager, in the conversations that I've had in the private vet care space, which we deal primarily with shelters, so we don't have too many conversations. We deal with more foster, rescue, shelter, both government and nonprofit. When on the rare occasion I've had a conversation with private vets, I have asked that, does this disrupt any portion of your microchip business? And they say, honestly, it's a little bit confusing. I think the microchip business needs to be improved quite a bit, which is why they're not registering, because wherever they're getting them from, they're not quite getting a full path to registration. They don't have a partner that's really leading them along the way. So to the anonymous person that asked that question, it seems like maybe that concept of whether we're going to get pushback from local vets or not, I've seen in many communities that happens for other things, for extended animal care that we're trying to provide to people, but not in the case of something as simple as a microchip. We have another great. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No. We have plenty of time. What were you going to say?
Yeah, that question popped up a lot for me, pushback from the vets when we do free vaccination clinics or, emergency care for someone that can't afford it. I never in my 9 years ever got pushback from any veterinarian. Oftentimes they would call me and say, we have this pet owner and they can't afford this, but this animal is treatable. Can you help? So maybe Sacramento is unique, but I felt like we had a good relationship with the veterinary community.
Well, I think that they understand that once that person shows up, they're not only going to get what's needed, it's going to assist you in getting another ledgered pet on the books, knowing who it belongs to.
Right.
We have another great question from Anonymous. If fire departments checked microchips, would they have the password to get the ownership information from the registries and alert the owners, or would they just give the chip number to the finder and tell the finder how to trigger alerts to the owners? This is a really great question, and I have a lot of answers for it. Gina,
No, go ahead, Matt. This is your lane. Let's talk about this.
So because fire departments are part of a municipal agency and they would be granted privileges through the local animal shelter, as well as just a city or the county that they answer to. If a fire department were working with us at Found Animals, yes, absolutely. They would be granted full privileges to see direct owner information. Privacy policy, they're not going to hand that off to the Good Samaritan. So there are different tools that all the registries have in order to be the mediator between that conversation so that we can protect the public's privacy. This is incredibly important. And on the finder side and the animal owner side, I understand it can be frustrating. But on the just community member side, we need to protect some of those things. That's why here at Found Animals, we do have found pet alerts, things like that. There are tons of other registries that are getting up to date with these types of tools to help with reunification. So the question there, yes, fire departments most likely would have direct access, but we would definitely want them to protect it from the Good Samaritan. And we have another question here. What about the best price we can expect to find for universal microchip scanners? For places like fire departments, how do you recommend scanners with wands for the safety of users? So wand scanners for fractious animals, definitely it's recommended that every shelter and most animal control officers have them. So why not one for a fire department? As far as the affordability of it, you'll just have to do some shopping, to be honest with you. Again, like I said earlier, we get lots of inquiries from people saying, hey, we want to equip our fire department, or we're working with several rescues. Now that we're post-COVID, we want to arm them with some scanners because they're helping us getting lost pets back home. What are your prices? Do you have bulk discounts? We hear all those questions. I don't necessarily know if there is a bellwether for what prices. To me, is the scanner universal? Will it pick up every microchip that's out there? That's really the specs that you need to be looking at. And then when it comes down to funding, kind of like you said earlier, Gina, start a GoFundMe. Reach out to the community members that tend to be generous with their pocketbooks. Let them know what the pain point is and bring it to them.
Well, we had a neighborhood in North Sacramento, Natomas. I think, Matt, you helped us with this project. They wanted to do this big chip campaign, and the neighborhood association bought the microchip for the fire departments in their neighborhood. It's not going to break the bank. It would if you had to buy one for every single fire station in your city, but there are so many ways to skin a cucumber on this one. And, I would presume that anybody who can pick up an animal, a friendly, healthy stray, and get it to the fire department, that it's not fractious, that it's not, not hard to handle. I mean, those are the animals that we're talking about. So just a routine little handheld scanner would do the trick.
Absolutely. I have another question from earlier that I may have missed. What shelter and data information can help guide shelters to increase more animals being returned home? So when you were in charge of the shelter, what was were there any red line markers that it suddenly you saw a spike in something on intake, you went, oh, we need to move our focus this way or that?
I'm not sure I even understand the question. Say that again.
Yeah, sure. I'll ask it again, and I'll not put in my own words with the follow-up. I think that was my fault. What shelter data or information can help guide shelters to increase more animals being returned to home?
Oh, well, I think it's super important to look at your data. Where are the animals coming from? I know in Sacramento what the 2 neighborhoods are with the highest intake, and start focusing energy in those neighborhoods to proactively offer the free chip, free tags, the free collars, and really saturating those neighborhoods with the right messaging and the right services. And you'll see a decrease from those areas when you do those things. If you sit there and do nothing, you will continue to have high volume intake from those neighborhoods and find yourself having to rehome all these animals that already had a home to begin with. It takes work on our part. None of this is easy, but it's also not rocket science. We're smart, we can do it.
Indeed. Another great question, and I love that you normally explain this all the way. We just did a shortened version, but how did you get permission from Nextdoor to post lost animals to every neighborhood in the city?
So most Nextdoor accounts are managed by either sheriff's department or the police department for that municipality. It's a law enforcement platform, if you will. So I went to the city to do this. I asked for permission to get a sub account from the city. The city of Sacramento has the main Nextdoor. Police department manages it. I asked for a sub account and they told me no. They didn't just say no, they said hell no. And one of our volunteers who actively was really pushing for a Nextdoor access made an appointment with this council member and explained why this was so important. And the next day, poof, we had a Nextdoor account. And it was that easy. I do have a name for someone at Nextdoor. I'm really urging everybody to reach out to them and let them relax their rules when it comes to the use of Nextdoor. Trying to find that man's name. Hold on. I have it here somewhere. So I know that Michelson has been in conversation with Nextdoor, but basically you need to convince your authority in your jurisdiction to give you access. And again, if somebody wants to reach out to me, it's usually the city or the county's public information officer that holds the magic key. And Front Street is a really good example that nothing bad happened. Nobody died. Volunteers didn't go rogue, and animals got back home where they belonged. So it was pretty cool. So the contact for Nextdoor is Dan Parham, P like Paul, A-R-H-A-M, D Parham at nextdoor.com. I highly encourage everyone to nudge him a little bit, because if municipal shelters in the United States were able to do what we did at Front Street, I think it would be a huge game changer.
Absolutely. It'd be nice to influence them a little bit,
yes,
to open things up for people in animal welfare. I've got a great question here from Kat. Kat's coming with the awesome questions. Thank you, Kat. You've got great questions for us. You said that you're on she says she's on the TransUnion website, and all she sees is info about the ability to run a credit report, but didn't see anything about using their site for tracking people. Can you elaborate on the account Front Street had, or refer her to someone at Front Street that she could talk to about it?
Sure. Well, so the city of Sacramento has a revenue division, and when people don't pay their parking tickets or their bills or what have you, the revenue division uses TransUnion as a skip tracing service. So I would urge any of our municipality shelters on this call to talk to your revenue offices about that. I can talk to Kat offline about how that works, and I can connect her to the person at Front Street that actually uses TransUnion for that purpose. Is that Kat Albrecht?
Yes, it is.
Good questions. Hey, Kat.
I do have another question from Anonymous that said, if someone wants to register with Found, but their chip is from another manufacturer, what do you require? I'm happy to answer that. It's just the microchip number, really. Any microchip can go into our system. It takes 90 seconds to register, and as you go through, you'll see that there's no place to even put your credit card information, nor do we ask for it. It is 100% free. What's great is after you finish your registration, you can go to the AHA lookup tool, which is a universal pet microchip lookup.org. It's a very long URL, but if you just type in AHA microchip lookup, You can search through, put it in their database, and it will show the previous databases that it was in, but it will also show your most updated one, which will be the one that you just register with Found Animals. So great question. And yeah, just go to found.org. Takes about 90 seconds. Got a couple more here. What is best to require that people bring with them to the shelter to reclaim a dog? Some shelters require rabies cert or license and not pictures. I get that shelters want to ensure the dog is going back to the right home, but this may be prohibitive for some.
Absolutely. And I think you have to be, I mean, come on, let's use good common sense. First of all, how does the animal react to the person? I mean, just through basic observation, everybody has a cell phone. And if you wanted to see pictures of my cats and my dogs, I've got hundreds of them in my phone. Do I have any vet records? Any vet records? Do I have a relationship with a veterinarian? Those are all sorts of things. And it shouldn't just be a license or a rabies, certificate. It's all of the things. Go to their Facebook page. I bet you they've got pictures of themselves with their pets. So let's be liberal in our ability to reunite. Quit being so rigid. We're our own worst enemies sometimes.
Understood. Here's another great question. Kathleen asked, oh no, I'm sorry, I got that one. Susan asked, in the Nextdoor app, are lost dogs shown in every neighborhood since dogs don't know, sorry, just jumped away, since dogs don't know boundaries of neighborhood? I actually know this one. So if I lose my cat, blah, blah, that's his name, and he gets out and I post, it's only gonna post to my neighborhood within Los Feliz here in Los Angeles. They do. It's interesting that Nextdoor has a pets page so that you can post your pet there, but that's not where we post lost and found pets. When we post lost and found, you can go there and you can see that people found car keys, people have lost their wallet, all sorts of things, and then you'll see pets randomly thrown in there. I think something that maybe Dan Parham could work with us on is to create an individual lost and found pet section, since we're dealing more with lives as opposed to property and objects. Was cost of care for cats comparable to the $33 for cost of care for stray dogs?
Yeah, we just used a general formula for every animal that came into the facility.
Gotcha. And I have one last question that I missed and skipped over with Finding Rover. We'll circle back around to this because I think that there's some like people are just cautious of it because it's facial recognition. Does it really work, and does it work on pets? Finding Rover, she asked, why is it successful in your shelter? I have known shelters that stopped using FR, facial recognition, because no animals were being reunited. That's a tough question.
It doesn't work unless you're telling people about it. If you're not talking to adopters and people redeeming their pets about the platform and what it does and how it works and how important it is to register their pet, period, it won't work. It only works when we work it. And now that Petco Foundation owns Finding Rover, if you're a Petco partner, I can assure you that you're going to get some nudging from Suzanne Kogut to register with Finding Rover. It does work. I tested it on live television. It was very nerve-wracking. And I had a shelter dog. I reported it as my own, and then I listed it as lost. And then I waited to see if it would send me an alert. The dog was actually in our shelter, and it hit instantly. And I mean, I took a big risk doing that on live TV, and it does work. It works great, but it doesn't work if your staff, volunteers, ACOs don't know how to tell people about it.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. So City of Dallas Animal Services, Ed and his team, they are fantastic. I've met with his lost and found guy, Tony, who does a lot of research of what you were talking about. And when I go to their page, if I were in the city of Dallas and found a lost dog or had lost my own dog, for example, there's a very clear and concise number of steps that you can go through, and Finding Rover is one of them. So again, using a tool as best as possible. Gina, the follow-up to that is, were you guys tracking any statistics on what your reunifications were with Finding Rover, or was it just abundantly clear that it was a good resource for you?
No, it's a great resource. No, we weren't tracking it. We do ask folks that come in to redeem their animals how they knew the animal was in our facility. And so they started tracking, was it Nextdoor, was it finding Rover? You know, when it happens, it happens. It's not the end all be all, but it is a tool that we should all be using because it works. It's all of the things. Maybe someday we'll have one thing, the magic, you know, bullet for all of this, but until we get there, I think we need to capitalize on everything that's available. And, you know, it's a free service. It doesn't cost a shelter anything.
Yeah. We have one last question, even though we're just a couple minutes over time, but this will be a short one for you. How do we whom do we contact to start using 555-888 system?
Okay, so it's going to be a different phone number for every city. It's going to be a different word. But if folks want to email me directly, g.knepp@foundanimals.org, I'm happy to provide you with the script and all of the information on how to get that started. I've helped New York, Chicago. I don't know if Vegas is up and running yet, Stanislaus. I mean, it's really cool because you think about people coming to a shelter and they're searching for their lost pet. They don't hear what you're saying. It's like, wah, 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 when we're telling them, you know, do this, do that. And this is an all-encompassing one place on their phone to get the information that they need. Actually, we started requiring people looking, you know, who came to the shelter to look for a lost pet, before they did anything, to text straight to 555-888, and we would tell them, this is all the information you need, you know, please follow up, blah, blah. So I'm happy to help anyone get started.
Well, thank you. And for anybody who's listening, if you open up the chat section, I've just put Gina's email in there as well as mine. Any of the materials that we've shown you today, presentations, of course, the recording will happen and be posted. You'll get a follow-up email for that. But you can reach out to either one of us individually. You can schedule time with Gina for her expertise. You can chat with me about the confusing microchip industry and how we can help. And any other follow-up comments or anything, Gina?
No, thanks to everyone who joined us tonight. RTO is the thing. Let's make it the thing. Thank you so very much. Rory, are you still with us?
I am. Thank you both so much. This has just been so fabulous, and you're both so wonderful. So thanks for being here with us tonight and for all the amazing information.
Well,
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Roy. Appreciate it. Thank you for everything.
Reach out. We're here to help.